Welcome to Goblins and Aliens. Let's speed paint some Space Marines. First tip for you. This is speed painting, not speed building. Make sure you take your time to remove any sprue connection points and any mould lines. You can carve them off or you can sand them off. It is worth doing this because it'll make the speed painting a hell of a lot easier. Tip number 2. Make sure you base your models before you prime them. This will save a hell of a lot of messy process later on. Tip 2.5. If you are painting an army that has one predominant colour and you happen to have that as a spray paint, it's probably worth priming all your models in that one colour. It'll save you a few extra steps later. Back to the video. With the models built and primed, it's on to the painting. I start by dry brushing a base coat in a zenithal fashion, aiming towards the top of the armour sections. Tip 3. Work in an assembly line. Doing this should allow each coat sufficient time to dry. This is dependent on how many models you are painting and how large the surface areas are. You may find it easier to work on smaller scales and do 5 or so models, or go all out and paint the full lot. Mixing a dark green into the base coat, I start to establish the overall look, reducing each layer as the mixture gets lighter. Adding brighter green into the mix on a smaller portion of the model will create a smoother transition. Tip 4. Make it interesting. I imagine these guys walking through a grim, dark battlefield surrounded by explosions, flames and bullet shots. So I'm going to concentrate the highlight on the front end here, making it darker towards the bottom. But I'm also going to add an object source lighting from behind, just to represent the chaos that they're in. Adding a bit of a story to your project will keep you engaged. You won't lose that oomph. Starting at the opposite side of the highlight, I use the same circular dry brush motion of dark red going up against the model. Gradually adding a brighter red and then a fiery orange, I decrease the target area dramatically. This will give a rewarding contrast to the object source lighting. Tip number 5, use metallic paint. You might feel the need to do non-metallic metal and ruin your enjoyment of this project. I've got 14 models here and I'm desperate to nail more metallic, but this is not the time for it. I will be doubling up with metallics, going from a dark to a light to give a bit of contrast, and I'll be using a bronze as well, with a brighter bronze on other elements before doing some of the finer details. I apply the metallic paint in a dash hazard way. I want to add to the grimdark vibe by giving a worn, battle-damaged appearance to the weapons. Splodging the brighter metallics as an almost wet blend will give a variety to the overall look. For the chest aquila, I'm using the same splodge techniques to give a subtle change of tone and a false highlight. When I first started this project, I told myself there was two things that I wasn't going to do: slap chop or use any washes. Unfortunately, yesterday when I was painting, I didn't realise it got dark. So this is not really a tip, this is more a common sense thing. Use a light. So to correct this error, the aquillas I painted last night in the dark are far too bright and too yellow. I wanted them to be bone colour. So to knock that back, I'm going to be using some Agrax Earthshade. Then I noticed some of the armour panels have no definition between them. Going to use a bit of non-oil very thinly to separate them. And another thing that I thought, do you know what, since I'm bringing out some washes, then I'm going to use some speed paint, and I'm going to do metal chop, which is a video that I've done before, and just paint some of the panels in red on the guns just to add some variation. Using washes and shades is a quick way to tone down the brightness. Sometimes it's best straight out the pot, others it's better to water them down to have control of the intensity of the colour change. I do this when I panel line. I don't want to swamp the model and leave it stained. Tip 6. Keep it simple. If you are going to paint any of the small details, you don't have to use all the layers to achieve seamless blends. Just give the impression of painting them. That will be enough. Metal chop. Check out my previous video for full description. It is a neat trick to use when speed painting. Remember that metallics, washes and contrast paints take a lot longer to dry, so be careful when working around them. You don't want to smudge any of your hard work. Tip 7. Tidy up. Just remember that you've done a lot of dry brushing and you use washes and speed paints, and there will be a bit of overspill with the brush strokes. Now's your opportunity to fix any little errors and even put some edge highlighting in if you've got time. For edge highlighting, I use my sharpest tipped brush. I load it up with the highlight mixed slightly with a yellow just to boost it, and I only hit the highest facing points. You could go mad and go edge highlighting around every panel, but this project doesn't require it. With the eyes, or the lenses I should say, I start off with a dark red, then gradually add the tiniest bit of bright red to the point that it's almost pure red, just gently dotting it in right at the end. And that's my speed painted Space Marines done. I didn't actually know I was going to be doing Dark Angels until I'd finished building them and I primed them. If I was to do this differently, I'd probably start off with a test model, but I was fairly confident in the process I had in my head. There are some other tips that you might consider, and one of them, which you would probably have noticed, is remove any unnecessary obstacles. If you'd noticed, all my Space Marines were wearing helmets. Painting faces takes a bit longer. So you can do tiny little tweaks like that to help the process. Until the next video, thank you for watching and take care.